Hi kids. Today we're going to finish our book called Ramona the Pest. Well, we're going to finish the last chapter. So, the last chapter is called Kindergarten Dropout. We'll read the first half in this video and the second half in the next. And then we'll be finished with the book. I hope Ramona doesn't drop out of kindergarten. That would be super sad, wouldn't it? Do you remember why she wants to drop out? Remember Miss Benny was a little upset with Ramona because Ramona kept pulling on Susan's curls, and she said, "Ramona, if you can't stop pulling Susan's curls, you will have to go home." And Ramona said, "I don't think I can stop pulling Susan's curls. I'm going to have to go home." And she thinks Miss Benny doesn't love her. And remember, Ramona lost her tooth, and her tooth is still inside Miss Benny's desk drawer. And now Ramona's at home without her tooth. How will she get it back so she can put it under her pillow for the tooth fairy? Well, we're going to find out in Chapter 8, Kindergarten Dropout. Why, Ramona, whatever is the matter? Mrs. Quimby wanted to know when Ramona opened the back door. Oh, nothing. Ramona had no trouble hiding the gap in her teeth. She did not feel like smiling, and not having a tooth to leave for the tooth fairy was only a small part of her trouble. Mrs. Quimby laid her hand on Ramona's forehead. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked. "Yes, I feel all right," answered Ramona, meaning that she did not have a broken leg or a skinned knee or a sore throat. "Then something must be wrong," insisted Mrs. Quimby. "I can tell by your face." Ramona sighed. "Miss Benny doesn't like me anymore," she confessed. "Of course Miss Benny likes you," said Mrs. Quimby. "She may not like some of the things you do, but she likes you." "No, she doesn't," contradicted Ramona. "She doesn't want me there anymore." Ramona felt sad, thinking about the recesses she would miss and the seat work she would miss out on. "Why, what do you mean?" Mrs. Quimby was puzzled. "Of course Miss Benny wants you there." "No, she doesn't," insisted Ramona. "She told me not to come back." "But why?" "She doesn't like me," was Ramona's answer. Mrs. Quimby was exasperated. Then something must have happened. There's only one thing to do, and that is to go to school and find out what happened. Eat your lunch, and then we'll go to school before afternoon kindergarten starts and see what this is all about. After Ramona had picked at her sandwich a while, Mrs. Quimby said briskly, "Put on your sweater, Ramona, and come along." "No," said Ramona, "I'm not going." "Yes, you are, young lady," said her mother, and she took her daughter by the hand. Ramona knew she had no choice when her mother started to call her young lady. She dragged her feet as much as she could on the way to school, where the afternoon kindergarten was behaving just like the morning kindergarten did. Half the class was lined up by the door waiting for Miss Benny, while the other half raced around the playground. Ramona stared at the ground because she did not want anyone to see her when Miss Benny arrived. Mrs. Quimby asked to talk to her for a moment. Ramona did not look up. Her mother led her to the bench beside the kindergarten door. "You sit there and don't budge while I have a little talk with Miss Benny," she told Ramona. Ramona sat on the bench, swinging her feet, thinking about her tooth in Miss Benny's drawer and wondering what her teacher and her mother were saying about her. Finally, she could stand it no longer. She had to budge, so she slipped over to the door as close as she could without being seen and listened. The afternoon kindergarten and the workmen across the street were making so much noise she could only catch a few phrases such as bright and imaginative and ability to get along with her peer group and negative desire for attention. Ramona felt awed and frightened to be discussed with such big words, which must mean Miss Benny thought she was very bad indeed. She scuttled back to the bench when at last she heard her mother walk to the door. "What did she say?" Ramona's curiosity was almost more than she could endure. Mrs. Quimby looked stern. "She said she will be glad to have you back when you are ready to come back." "Then I'm not going back," announced Ramona. She would never go to kindergarten at all if her teacher did not like her. Never. "Oh, yes, you are," said Mrs. Quimby. Ramona knew better. Thus began a very difficult time in the Quimby household. "But Ramona, you have to go to kindergarten," protested Beezus when she came home from school that afternoon. "Everybody goes to kindergarten." "I don't," said Ramona. "I used to, but I don't now." When Mr. Quimby came home from work, Mrs. Quimby took him aside and talked for a minute. Ramona was not fooled for 1 minute. She knew exactly what these whispers were about. "Well, Ramona, "Suppose you tell me all about what you did at school today," said Mr. Quimby, with false cheerfulness that grown-ups use when they're trying to persuade children to tell them something they don't want to tell. Ramona, who longed to run to her father and show him where her tooth used to be, thought a while and said, "We guessed what Miss Binny had in a paper bag that began with T. Davy guessed caterpillars." "What else happened?" asked Mr. Quimby, all set to be patient. Ramona could not tell her father about her tooth. She could not tell him about pulling Susan's curls. Nothing much was left to talk about. "We learned T," she said at last. Mr. Quimby gave her daughter a long look, but said nothing. After dinner, Beezus asked to talk to Mary Jane on the telephone, and Ramona could hear her say, "Guess what? Ramona's a kindergarten dropout." She seemed to think the remark was very funny because she giggled into the telephone. Ramona was not amused. Later, Beezus settled down to read a book while Ramona got out her crayons and some paper. "Beezus, you don't have very good light for reading," said Mrs. Quimby, and she added, as she always did, "You have only one pair of eyes, you know." Here was an opportunity for Ramona to show off her knowledge that she learned in kindergarten. "Why don't you turn the donzer on?" she asked, proud of her new word. Beezus looked up from her book. "What are you talking about?" she asked Ramona. "What is a donzer?" Ramona was scornful. "Silly, everybody knows what a donzer is." "I don't," said Mr. Quimby, who had been reading the evening paper. "What is a donzer?" "It's a lamp," said Ramona. "It gives light. We sing it every morning in kindergarten." A puzzled silence fell over the room, and suddenly Beezus shouted with laughter. She means," she gasped, "the Star-Spangled Banner." Her laughter dwindled to giggles. She pronounced each word with exaggerated distinctness, and then she began to laugh again. "She means the dawn's early light." Ramona looked at her mother and father, who had straight mouths and laughing eyes as grown-ups who are trying not to laugh out loud. Beezus was right and she was wrong. She was nothing but a girl who used to go to kindergarten, who got everything wrong and made everyone laugh. She was a stupid little sister, a dumb, stupid little sister who never did anything right. Suddenly, everything that had happened that day was far too much for little Ramona. She glared at her sister, made a big crisscross motion in the air with her hand and shouted, "Cross out Beezus!" And then she threw her crayons to the floor and stamped to her room. In tears. "Ramona Quimby," her father said sternly, and Ramona knew that she was about to be ordered back to pick up her crayons. Well, her father could order her all he wanted. She was not going to pick up her crayons. Nobody could make her pick up her crayons. Nobody. Not her father, not her mother, not even the principal. "Now, never mind," Ramona heard her mother say. "Poor little girl, she's just upset. She has had a difficult day." "Sympathy made things worse. I am not upset," yelled Ramona. And yelling made her feel so much better that she continued, "I am not upset. I am not a little girl, and everybody is mean to laugh at me." And she threw herself on her bed and pounded her heels on the bedspread. But pounding on the bedclothes was not bad enough, not far from it. Ramona wanted to be wicked, really wicked, so she swung around and she beat her heels on the wall. Bang, bang, bang. That noise ought to make everybody good and mad. "Mean, mean, mean," she yelled in time with her drumming heels. She wanted to make her whole family feel as angry as she felt. "Mean, mean, mean." She was glad her heels left marks on the wallpaper. Glad, glad, glad. "Mother, Ramona's kicking the wall," cried Tattletale Beezus, as if her mother did not know what Ramona was doing. "It's my wall, too." Ramona did not care if Beezus tattled. She wanted her to tattle. Ramona wanted the whole world to know she was so bad she kicked the wall and she left heel marks on the wallpaper. "Ramona, if you're going to do that, take off your shoes." Mrs. Quimby's voice came from the living room, and she was tired but calm. Ramona drummed harder to show everyone how bad she was. She would not take off her shoes. She was a terrible, wicked girl. Being such a terrible, bad, horrid, wicked girl made her feel good. She brought both heels against the wall at the same time. Thump, thump, thump. She was not the least bit sorry for what she was doing. She would never be sorry. Never, never, never. Ramona, Mr. Quimby's voice held a warning note. Do you want me to come in there? Ramona paused and considered. Did she want her father to come in? No, she did not. Her father, her mother, nobody could understand how hard it was to be a little sister. She drummed her heels a few more times to prove that her spirit had not been broken, and then she lay on her bed and thought wild, fierce thoughts until her mother came and silently helped her undress and get into bed. When the light had been turned out, Ramona felt so limp and so tired that she soon fell asleep. After all, she had no reason to try to stay awake because the Tooth Fairy was not going to come to her house that night. Poor Ramona. She's so angry and sad about her bad day at school. I sure hope things get better so we have a happy ending for Ramona. See you next time for the last part of the book. Bye for now.